I want to talk about the Sherrone Moore era and Michigan's transition. And you and I talked outside of Schembechler Hall the Monday after the Ohio State game. It was snowing. We did a hit on your show in front of the Bo Schembechler statue. And we talked about the possibility of Sherrone Moore being Michigan's next head coach. It went in the direction that many thought it would. You know, I was sitting there. We were at practice for Michigan before the Rose Bowl. They moved it inside one day. We were at SoFi Stadium. Now Jim Harbaugh will be coaching there with the Chargers. So it went about as expected or as predicted. And that's why I kind of almost didn't predict it, because never, things don't usually go according to plan.
Yeah, Harbaugh is the ultimate wild card. Everybody else, you kind of know, like, okay, this is the way it'll go. This is logical. And that is the strangest thing I think about the whole sequence of events, is it happened very logically, because he wins the national title. He talks to NFL teams. The Chargers were one of the ones that we kind of ID'd early as one that might be a fit, have the quarterback in the location he wanted to be in. He talked to them. It got serious. He took the job, and they promoted Sherrone Moore 2 days later. Like, it was exactly the way it probably should have gone, but it never seems to go like that.
Right. Which is, in of course, I think that Sherrone Moore has taken over, late January. There have been a couple speed bumps, the one big one being the Ben Herbert moves on. You kind of expected Jesse Minter, but then you see also Mike Elston and Steve Klinksky all move on. But from the point that Jim Harbaugh left, 48 hours, Sherrone Moore is hired. And then over the last month or so, I guess, how would you assess how the Sherrone Moore transition has gone from your perspective?
Pretty well. The Herbert thing surprised me, because NFL teams just don't value strength coaches in the same way. But it was kind of an interesting look into probably what they had to promise Jim Harbaugh to get him, which was a lot of control and a willingness to spend, because they end up getting Ben Herbert. And, I figured he'd stay at Michigan because a strength coach is just so much more valuable in college, and they wouldn't be able to match what Michigan was going to be able to pay. But, they promoted from within. So the idea is hopefully everything stays fairly similar, and, you keep the program that the players are used to, the same sort of science that Ben Herbert was using, because he's a pretty, cutting edge guy. They do a lot of things that, you look at, that they lift heavy, sure, but they do a lot of flexibility, balance type stuff that, he's one of the leading guys for a reason. I mean, he understands how to build better football players. And so the hope is that by promoting from within, that's what you get. You never know until you see it in action if that's what happens.
Right. No doubt. And look, I mean, here's the thing with a hire that a lot of it was hinging on, the continuity. That was kind of what you were banking on. You were also hiring Sherrone Moore because you like Sherrone Moore as Michigan's head coach, because you can never guarantee continuity in today's college football in a number of ways.
Right.
But just, I think you like the hire, right, to Sherrone Moore. I mean, it seems
I love the hire. I love the hire Sherrone Moore, and the benefit of this one is you already know what he is as a game day coach. Like, he's had to coach in two of the highest pressure situations imaginable against Penn State and Ohio State last year. And, Penn State, he finds out really when they are landing the plane that he may be coaching, then doesn't really find out till the morning that he's definitely the one coaching the team. And, had a situation that he had to solve in that game where Penn State's pass rush was a problem for Michigan. And he ends up running the ball. It wound up being 28 times in a row because a pass attempt got wiped out by a penalty. And you think, okay, this guy understands how to solve a problem and get the job done. And then you go to the Ohio State game where he basically called a flawless game on offense while doing all the head coach duties, the fourth down decisions, the big picture stuff. And so that's the benefit. Like, when you promote a coordinator or you hire someone who's been a coordinator, you just don't know what they'll be as a game day coach. Like when Georgia hired Kirby Smart away from Alabama, there was a bit of a gamble there because you are pretty sure what he's going to be as a program builder and everything else. But you don't know if he's going to freak out when he gets in the game. Now, obviously, he's not. He didn't. He's turned out to be a very good game day coach. Yeah. But Sherrone Moore, you already know. And the only other situations, other than interim coaches being promoted, like Ed Orgeron at LSU, but Ryan Day's situation at Ohio State was similar because Urban Meyer got suspended that year before. So you had a sense of what he was as a game day coach. And I'm sure all the Michigan fans are just laughing at this now because Sherrone Moore beating Ryan Day probably made Ryan Day's life as miserable as it's ever been.
No doubt. And I will say that the key difference in that it's more challenging, I think, for Sherrone Moore to take over is that Urban Meyer didn't leave for another job at that point.
Right.
So he had a little bit more of a luxury to pick and choose who he wanted to keep. Obviously, I don't remember exactly how it went in terms of if guys.
It was very similar the first year. From year 1 to year 2, it didn't change much.
And then he kind of made some changes as needed. So that is a key difference. But you're right. At least it was the audition that Ward Manuel talked about at Sherrone's introductory press conference.